Welcome to the 2011 Intermission podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Intermission took place January 24th through 26th at the Seaside Convention Center. The following message was brought to us by Cynthia Nicholson during the second Tuesday morning session.
Boyd said it. We have a pastorate that we're responsible for. And so our missionaries are our church. We are their authority level, spiritual, blah, 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 the whole thing. And what it means is we get to serve them, just as you get to serve your congregations. A number of years ago when I was working on my masterate at AGTS in counseling, I was aware that the missionaries who had survived Hurricane Mitch in Central America were suffering. It was a few years later, and the Baptists did a study, and they said 5 years after a traumatic event, people leave missions. They quit. And we had in Springfield kind of a compassion forum, and I was looking at our missionaries that were there. We invited specific ones to come there from Central America, and they took a little self-test, and they all went, "That's us, we're there." And actually, one of them fulfilled that Baptist prediction that after five years after an event, you quit the ministry. And he was gone. Thankfully, he's back now, but anyway, that's another story. I just started focusing attention on what this is all about. What is it that causes a person who experiences trauma, whether their own or the trauma of others, or as we experience in ministry, so many times what our people are experiencing, we experience too. So this is a session that I have kind of put together, have taught it in Bible schools and different kinds of environments, a lot for missionaries. But in the Bible schools context in Latin America, we'll take it down to what they will project their ministry will be. This is the first time I'm doing this for pastors. And it just makes so much more sense today to me than ever before that it's something that we need to take very seriously, pay attention to. My little clue word is going to be next. Our brain wiring default system is to be a helper. We see need, we help. There's a neuroscience, a new area of social neuroscience, says that they've studied the brains of people that are interacting with one another, and we actually will mirror the other person's reactions. We will feel what they feel. We know it is empathy, don't we? And as this is happening in a helping relationship, when you are the helper and you're helping someone else, you're actually absorbing in your brain system, in your emotional system, in your whole feeling, you're feeling what they're feeling. So how does that impact us as ministers? Next. Ministers are caregivers. They're hurting people around us everywhere. How many of you have a church in which you know there's a segment of society, a segment of your church society is seriously hurting, whether physically, economically, legally, educationally? You have people at risk. Can I see? One guy. Oh, no. Okay, a bunch of you. It's the majority. It's what our churches have. Compassion fatigue. Let's describe it next. The definition is it's a state of exhaustion and dysfunction, biologically, psychologically, socially, and spiritually as a result of working with victims of traumatic events. Prolonged exposure to someone else's struggle results in PTSD-like symptoms in the caregiver. Now, Next. This is how many of you on Monday morning? Or Sunday afternoon? I've given, I have nothing left, I'm done. Next. There are a number of terms, and I remember years ago in Ministers' Institutes when they would talk about burnout, and I was going, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, it's very similar. There are a lot of similarities. Trauma, obviously, is not what burnout is. Trauma is something that is extraordinary, not because it's so massive, but because it affects the person. It affects the person who is traumatized. We've all heard about post-traumatic stress disorder. It happens to be the disorder that was my favorite to study because of what I was worried about our missionaries who can be influenced by disasters, natural disasters, such as Hurricane Mitch and the various things. I think of the missionaries who have actually worked through the disaster in Haiti over this past year. Only about 3% of that rubble has been cleared away. Here it is a year later. Just imagine what it's like working with that. Well, taking it from that overseas and foreign context where you go, oh, yeah, it's like that out there. But then apply it to what it's like where you live, where you're working, where your heart is ministering. Not just when you go on a foreign trip, but when you're ministering to the hurting within your environment. You have people who have been traumatized, and as they tell their story, you begin to feel their feelings. You begin to hear that trauma. It translates to you. Babette Rothschild is an author who has written a book about how this really takes place. And as a counselor, the counselors are very aware that we have to protect ourselves. When I started counseling, I would go home at night and I would pray for all my clients and I would say, oh, Lord Jesus, just give me wisdom and help me to know how to help that person and help me to know how. Well, I loved last night how we ended the prayer with our hands down before we lifted our hands to the Lord, because that's what I had to do as a counselor. I had to say, Lord, they're yours. And I'd dump all my cares for the clients into God's hands and say, I can't carry this. Well, that translates. That translates with our missionaries. And I'd say, oh, man, somebody's having a problem. Today, we have a missionary, Bill Strickland, whose wife died yesterday. And my heart goes out to Bill. And he's right here in my hand. And I have to go again. Lord, Bill is yours. I loved Barbara. She was one of the most amazing women. Amazing woman. She's yours. He's yours. These people that we care for. If I take their stress and their traumatic events and absorb them, I will have what is known as secondary post-traumatic stress. We won't get into all the definitions and reactions. Let me just mention the risk factors that go along with trauma. Some of them are the duration of the event. A person who has been raped has been traumatized. But a person who has been raped repeatedly over and over and over, like Sally Culberth, who has a ministry to adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. She was abused by her grandfather, and it was repeated throughout her childhood. She tells what it was like to be floating in the air over the bed in her mind. She dissociated. She has had dissociative identity disorder. Now she's a minister to women like this. But when she described that environment where it was the grandfather, he was a preacher. He made her get down and kneel and pray when he was done with her. Every time. And she would have to ask forgiveness for tempting him. And now in that repeated trauma, it magnifies the effect. So you take that, then you take the relationship of what you expect to have happen in life, and people who are supposed to be safe aren't supposed to hurt us. How many of you have been traumatized by a board member? Okay. I came into this place, everybody loved me, and somebody did me wrong. And it hurts, and it can actually, if it's ongoing, if it multiplies, if it affects me in a lot of areas, it's a trauma. Now, we are ministering. We are traumatized. We experience trauma. That debilitates us. It puts us in this risk factor. If you've had a number of risk factors. In fact, I remember when we put in our missions application form, Dick is the most amazing man in the world. I'm just blessed. I'm married to him. But he filled out this application form to become a missionary, and his psychological scores got us an invitation to Springfield ahead of time to meet with the psychologist. It was really fun. And now, in the months, like 2 months prior to filling out that form, we had a trauma in our church in somebody that we really trusted in leadership, and that person did something they should not have done, and it was somebody we had brought in and hurt. It hurt. His mother died. Hurt. Various things happened right at that point in time. And then he fills out this personality profile, and they go, you're in depression or something's going on here. Let's find out what it is. Well, we went to Springfield, and they got us a clean bill of mental health, thank God. And but we got some really good direction at that time. How healthy it is to say, if I'm struggling, if I'm aware that there has been a multiplication of factors in my life, this word risk, I'm there. Now, two people can have experienced the very same thing. One goes nuts and the other one just really handles it. What's the difference? A lot of times it's the risk factor. It's have I been debilitated? Have I been experienced one shock after another? Or has there been too many people in my life who I have been caring for them. I have been ministering to them. I've been visiting this person in the hospital. I've been caring. It affects me. I am at risk. I have to recognize that. And so the secondary PTSD acts exactly like PTSD. PTSD, just for a quick recap, is the person numbs against what they don't want to experience, so they become sterile and just kind of pushing away from feelings. Secondary are intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, or vivid scenes, or a startle effect. That's the intrusion. And, okay, we're not going to get into all that. But secondary traumatic stress is exactly the same thing. And secondary is what you experience when you're working with somebody who has PTSD or a trauma in their life that they are helping you work through. So let's go on to the next one. The burnout, I think you have to hit the button a few times to get the whole thing on there. The vicarious traumatization is when your brain looks in the eyes of that person you're dealing with, and it just makes this memory connection, and all of a sudden something about their presence with you inspires a memory. The body remembers. The body remembers. How many of you have gone like that while watching a movie and you're falling off a cliff in the movie with that person? You have a physical reaction. It's because the body remembers what it looks like to be falling. And so when you're watching it, it's that memory. And so That's vicarious traumatization. You have a memory of some response. You have a memory of what this whole feeling world is about. Burnout is a little bit different because it accumulates over time. It's not necessarily caused by the trauma. Now, we have experienced burnout. I remember one time a pastor was visiting with a team from the United States when we were missionaries in Argentina, and I was cooking for the team. I was happy to be. This was great. In Argentina, in those years, there were not too many Americans that came that far, and so it was really fun to have all these Americans. And I'm peeling potatoes, and the pastor is sitting in the kitchen watching me, and he said, "Cynthia, why are you crying?" And I said, "I'm not crying." And he said, "Look at your eyes. Tears are dripping off your chin." And I said, "I know. Isn't that crazy? I have no idea." And he said, "I think you're in burnout." I was on the 4th year of our term. We started how many churches that particular term? It was crazy, wild schedule. Raising the family, having the kids, I was the ICI, which is now global director, and we were church planters, and all those things were going on at the same time. Aware? No, not at all. And he said, "You've got to take care of yourself, little lady." And so I go, "Well, give me a chance, But a few months later, we had the opportunity to visit in that church that pastor was at. And he said, "Oh, you look so different today." I'd done some of the things that we're going to be talking about today to recoup, recharge, and come back and say, I don't have to live with the effects. In fact, there was a deputation service where burnout hit the max for Dick. We were in our mother church, which was Albany First. That's back in the days when Jefferson was under the Albany system. And so we had just left Jefferson, and we were itinerating, raising our budget, and lots of pressure to do it right. We're going to do it better than anybody else. We're going to raise this budget faster than anybody and better than anybody. I don't know, all the stuff that was motivating us, but Dick had goals that were not set by neither AGWM nor the district, and it was just driving him. And we were in Albany, Oregon at the missions convention, and he burned out. He preached 3 sermons in one night. Back to back to back to back to back to back. And the next day, am I embarrassing you, honey? The next day, or a few days later, the pastor, Alan Groff, called us in, and he said, "Dick, I want to be kind, but I have to talk to you about what happened Sunday night. Got to have a little time for truth-telling here." And he sat us down, and he said, "You're on burnout. You've got pressure going on." And the guy, those of you, how many remember Alan Groff? He was a psychologist and a great pastor. And he said, he explained it. He was kind. He was caring. He helped us. We took 3 days off between Sundays. Couldn't miss a service. But we took the time off. We flew to Hawaii, and it was just like 2-week vacation. It was decompression. It was time to readjust our thinking and our pressures and our life. That's burnout. That's a little bit different from compassion fatigue. But let me tell you, if you've got the risk factor of burning going on in your life and ministry, and then trauma happens, you are at high risk to suffer secondary traumatic stress. High risk. If there's physical problems going on in your family, if you're a caregiver for the elderly, if you have toddlers, my goodness, and more than one, multiply it. It's exponential. Those things that are just joys and wonderful, wonderful opportunities to serve puts you at risk because of the accumulated effect. Compassion fatigue has an empathy factor, and it's that when you feel what they feel, you're being a good minister. That's why God calls us, because we love people. I remember reading Richard Exley's book after the fall of somebody, and he said most ministers who have moral failure, it's not because they were leches out looking to have an affair. It's because they are very caring people and they didn't put enough boundaries in their lives. And somehow this person that he connects with or she connects with, it's more about being a caring person and reaching out to somebody. So his theory is he never prays for anybody outside the office. He says, once I go home, they're toast. You know, they can have whatever they have going on their lives. I can't afford to be caring about somebody of the opposite sex in my prayer life because it binds me to them. It connects me to them. That's that empathy factor that you go, empathy is wonderful, but boy, you know, it can also be dangerous. And the comorbid conditions, when I work for the National Institute of Marriage in Branson, Missouri, we do intensive for couples in crisis. And so I do this about, maybe once every 2 or 3 months, that I'll do a 4-day intensive with them. Two counselors work with 5 couples in group therapy. Have a 95% success rate. Yay! Thank you, Jesus, for success in restoring marriages. But before we even meet the clients, we get all their paperwork. Sunday night before Monday's start of a 4-day intensive, I'll read about everybody, all 10 individuals, fill in all the paperwork. Comorbid conditions abound. We have probably 10% of the clients that I've seen are ministers, and the rest are just people, you know. Guess what? Same issues. Same exact issues. It's no different. But this comorbidity of, if there's a person who has, you look at somebody. Now, I loved Mark Batterson's presentation because there was not a tinge of narcissism in him. Do you agree? Not a tinge. I love that. When you see somebody who's up there and it's all about me and let me present my ministry, and you go, not really. That person has something else going in their lives that's comorbid with that. They might be histrionic, they might have negative thinking, they might have all kinds of... those are also things that we have to beware of, not mixing up what's going on and saying, okay, just because I'm feeling depressed doesn't mean anything. Oh, listen, if you're feeling depressed, you want to know it. Take advantage of getting help. Say, do I have something else happening? Is there anxiety? Is there whatever? Find out, because as you address the issues, as you take care of the issues, you're protecting yourself against when something happens that is just shocking to you, to your system. You will not have to fall into chaos, total disrepair. Next. Some ministry distinctives. Characteristics of all caregivers. Now, these are medical, mental health, social workers, clergy. We're all people who feel like we can always give a little bit more. We can do a little bit more. Our calling, our preparation, our context, our experience, the uniqueness of our life. We have some distinctives going on that are very similar, and then there are things that are very different from other caregivers. Nurses definitely have this caregiving quality. Counselors, psychologists have the caregiving quality. But the minister has this unique thing where it's not 9 to 5, and it continues all day long, into the night, through the next day. Our family is on view, And that makes us vulnerable. It puts us in a position of vulnerability. Let's go on. The downward spiral begins with tired me. Remember the image of the guy on the desk. Tired me. Poor me. Then that moves to shame on me. To hate me. To I hate others. To I hate God for doing this to me. So, we've got recognition, prevention, and treatment. Let's go to the next, and we'll just jump. The indicators and cognitive shifts, you've got to go from health and to recognizing that you're having problems. You go from dependence and trust to chronic suspicion, from safety to heightened sense of vulnerability, from power to a sense of helplessness, from independence to a loss of personal control and freedom. If somebody else says to you the slightest hint that they think you might be suffering, you know that people don't say that easily. So if they even say it, if they even hinted it, take a real deep breath and go, oh man, I must be in trouble, and check it out. The prior coping strategies can work for future use. Recognition is part 2. Then prevention. Education and training, that's me getting my pedicure in Haiti, following 2 women's seminars. That's self-care. That's a good self-care practice. And all the women said, amen. Establish boundaries. Establish boundaries, like Richard Exley said. And the other. Okay, then we'll go on to treatment. Proactive steps. How many of us don't say no? We think, I can give a little bit more. And the problem is, we're capable of giving a little bit more. The people who are so prone to not recognizing that they are at risk are the people who they're 10-talent people. The most capable people are the ones who just believe, well, I can do that too. And I can do that too. And I can do that too. And because they can, they think they should. Okay, learn to say no. Make a personal mission statement. Here are some healing activities of do's and don'ts. We can go through them next. Do. Whoop, that we skip. Relax and rest. That's Dick in a pool. Next, yeah, the one between those 2. There you go. Relax and rest. That's in Costa Rica. Eat nutritiously. Avoid sugar. That's Cynthia in Cuba with, look at the size of that lobster tail, friends. Not all things in Cuba are bad. Number 3, get more than enough sleep. Makes sense. I'd just been through surgery, had my hip replaced, and it took a little bit out of me. Next. Talk about what happened. Talk about it. Freud was not all wrong about everything he said, and one of the things that he was a proponent of was cathartic talk. Talking to God. Oh my goodness, yeah, we all preach about that. But also talk about what you're experiencing in the caregiving side. If you have cohort group that you're part of, and use them as a resource. Say, look, this person that I'm dealing with, and there are ways to not break confidentiality and still talk about how it's affecting you, what you're dealing with, and helping somebody else. Write about what happened. Laugh when you can. Joanne Butrin talked about ministering to the refugees in Africa, and she said at night there were 3 women that had to share a bed, and then they'd get giggling and they'd say, okay, time to roll over, and they'd all have to roll over at the same time to fit on the bed. And she said, we had been through so much trauma day by day by day, dealing with these people that were living in tents, refugees, that the laughter was so healing. Next, set small goals. Keep some sort of routine. Exercise. Next. Spend time with those who are supportive and helpful. This is not the time to call somebody who's negative. Negative thinking is like poison to the ministry. You know it in your congregation. But it's also something that you have to really beware who you share with. Cry if you can. Pray, reflect in the Word. Next. Sing, listen to music. Educate yourself about traumatic reactions. Know that the intensity of the pain will not last forever. That is a very healthy thing to keep in mind. Say, okay, this too shall pass. In time, we're going to come to the other side of this. Next, anticipate difficult times to come. Search and find perspective and meaning in the event. And number 18, ask for help and let others help you. I was just in Cuba with a pastor's wife who said, oh, I could never ask the women to help me in my church. And I said, why not? She said, because then they'd want to come into my house, and I live behind the church, and, you know, to keep that, we need to protect that. And I said, well, then just leave the house and let them clean the thing for you, you know. Just whatever it is, let others help you in a way that's meaningful to you. Let's see a few. Don't make big decisions. Okay, choosing which shoes to wear might be about the limit. At a time when you're aware that you are suffering a secondary stress or caregiving, this is just plain old wisdom. Number 2, don't look for a new job or new church, buy a new car, get a divorce, or have an affair. And if you go, now, Cynthia, you know, okay, I told you 10% of the people that we see at this marriage counseling are ministers. And it happens. It happens when you're most vulnerable because you're not doing the things that we had just mentioned. Number 3, don't blame others. Being adversarial will only exhaust you further. Take responsibility for what you can take responsibility for, but instead of going around trying to find who's really to blame, that is a total waste of time. Just throw it up in the air or do what we did last night and say, God, we're going to let you handle where the blame falls. Don't spend your energy complaining. Avoid commiserating with discontented colleagues. Next. Don't work harder and longer. Won't solve it. Next. Don't try a quick fix. Compassion fatigue can make you vulnerable to addictive behaviors. These are all addictive behaviors. And substance abuse. Addictions can... Oh, that's not you, Dick. No. Can exercise be an addiction? Can shopping be an addiction? Anything can be an addiction. Next. The systems involvement. The systems that we belong to. Right here. I love what we're doing here. This is healing. This is helpful. The system, not your local church, see if you can get them to help bring resilience into your life, bring the support systems into your life. But, you know, I'm going to leave that part. Here, Oregon Ministry Network, Intermission is a system involvement that you are taking advantage of that will, hopefully you'll leave here healthier, more relaxed, more capable of facing what is out there tomorrow, the Assemblies of God. Next, functions of support systems: active listening, acknowledgement of good work, training, emotional support, reality testing. Now, I'm sure, Bill, you're aware of all these things. You've had a focus on this because it shows up in what comes out in the emails from the Oregon District on a regular basis. But pastors, you do it too. Ministers, you do it too. Take this list and say, I'm going to put a system in that I am going to help others not fall into these. Because you want healthy people. Not only do you want to be healthy, you want to have healthy people in your churches. And you want to be the support system for them. Post-traumatic growth. Recovered survivors of trauma can find themselves stronger than before. That is a truth. Now, we started out by saying previous trauma makes a person more vulnerable to more serious effects of trauma. But when they process it, when they come through to healing from it, they're better than ever because they know that it didn't kill them. They know that they've got a new view on life. They have capacity. They have understanding. They have empathy. There's a lot of positive psychological change. The paradox is, it happens, and there are things that we don't understand, and we learn to live with those paradoxes and say, yeah, Barb Strickland is one of the brightest, smartest women I know, and her brain at the end was mush. That's a paradox. So, she didn't receive healing. Is God good? Of course God is good. God was loving and caring during her demise. That's a paradox. We live with these things. Next. Can we all read this together, please? I know Alcoholics Anonymous has kind of made it a cliche, but I believe the Serenity Prayer is good for us to do regularly. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Next. Compassion is not ours. It emanates from God through us. It is renewable. Lamentations says, God's compassions fail not. They are new every morning. When your compassion is at the verge, at the edge, just take it one more time back to the Father and say, I don't want to be at risk of losing what you have given to me, Lord. I give it back to you. Whether it's this way or this way, I give it to you, Lord. And now renew your compassion in me so that I can be your faithful servant. God bless you.
Thank you for listening to the 2011 Intermission podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.